We have to wait.
Sure. Thank you. Let's make you some space.
So, good afternoon everyone. Thanks so much for the introduction. My name is Matteo Andreozzi and I'm a PhD student at the University of Milan, Italy. I study ethics and I focus my research on environmental and animal ethics. Environmental and animal philosophy in general. As you can easily imagine, media and communication technology are not properly my fields, as English is not properly my language. I'm sorry for that. Nevertheless, I think that while we conduct research on the ethical relevance of the connections between biology, ecology, and philosophy in this age of economic, ecological, and social crisis, we cannot be indifferent to the need of finding the best way to disseminate the related philosophical considerations. Environmental ethics nowadays don't intend to inform us neither about what is right or what is wrong to do. They intend to transform our way of thinking. That's why they must be related to media and communication technology. So, today I'm going to talk about why and how new media could help us handle the ecological and social crisis of our century. I have to inform, however, that I'm not going to mention case studies. I heard a lot of case studies these days. In light of the researches on new media and social movements I've made in the last years, I'm going to address internet developers in particular and try to show them how both our thinking faculty and the dialogue between several fields of knowledge and philosophy need their help. I wish there is some internet developer here to talk about these topics. I hope some of you or your colleagues will accept my invitation or my provocation today. But let me say that I'm already very pleased to have found out, thanks to colleagues I met here at the Galaxy, that last month the Kerkhoff gave a talk at the Ecosofia conference of Sao Paulo to Brazil, especially about these topics. We have Brazilians here. I attended his talk on Ustream and I think we share almost the same thinking, and we also are trying to issue the same invitation to internet developers. I liked it, and apparently I'm not the only one. There are at least other 218 people who agree with me, as you can see. It's a good start. I thought it would be useful to structure my talk into 4 sections. Firstly, I will explain the connections between natural well-being and human well-being. Secondly, I will display how contemporary crises depend on the old cultural paradigm's inability to understand these complex connections. Thirdly, I will show how thinking changes are deeply influenced by media changes. And lastly, I will provide suggestions, especially to the social movements involved with the cultural change, to use the World Wide Web to facilitate the spreading of a new cultural paradigm. If you have any questions, I will try to answer them afterwards. First of all, I want to focus on the meaning of the term ecosystem. It has to be pointed out that the term ecosystem which is dynamic and dynamically linked to the other parts of the biosphere. Talking about ecosystems, plural, is therefore equivalent to talk about nature, a network of networks of relationships that tend to preserve a state of homeostasis given by a continuous exchange of matter and energy, which helps in maintaining the dynamic equilibrium essential to keeping alive the natural systems and humans as well. As a proof of that, a recent study found that ecosystem services are in fact deeply linked with components of human well-being that are commonly encountered. The Millennium Ecosystem Assessment, also called MA, divided ecosystem services into 4 broad groups. The supporting group is essential for the proper functioning of all the other groups, and is also directly connected with biodiversity on Earth. The other three identified groups are provisioning, regulating, and cultural services. The MA shows that all our basic needs are more or less directly and strongly dependent on these 4 natural services, 4 plus 1 considering biodiversity. In other words, not only our well-being, just I say in the last slide, depends on natural well-being. It's our own freedom of choice and action that which can be traced back to nature. Nevertheless, it's not easy to perceive that every one of us depends on nature for the condition of a good life. Hence, the changes humans have made to ecosystems in the last decades to improve and globalize the Western standard of life caused an ecological crisis, which implies biological crisis and social crisis as well. Indeed, these unprecedented changes have weakened nature's ability to deliver key services related to the flourishing of life on the planet and jeopardize the achievement of social goals such as reducing poverty, hunger, and disease. Physicist and systemic thinker Fritjof Capra points out that all these crises are only symptoms of the worldview crisis derived from the foremost thinking crisis of the Western civilization. Hence, in order to handle all the problems that are now coming to a head from the out-of-date anthropocentric cultural paradigm, we need to adopt a different worldview and think in a different way. To put it another way, we cannot solve contemporary crises with the same paradigm and the same thinking we used when we created them. Capra highlights that a new paradigm is now emerging from the systemic theories, and it seems fit for the purpose of helping us to tackle contemporary crises. The new paradigm can be defined ecocentric or biocentric because it puts ecosystems interconnection and holistic view of life at the center of a renewed worldview. Nevertheless, in order to shift to this cultural paradigm and adopt a systemic and ecological worldview, we need to think in a collective, interactive, and cooperative way, highlighting underlying natural interconnections and links between human and ecosystem well-being. Therefore, we have to develop or strengthen a linking thinking faculty, nowadays grounded in the linear thinking, evolutionist and analytical anthropocentric culture. The acronym L.I.N.K stands for Life, Innovation, Nature, and Knowledge. I suggest naming the linking thinking faculty with the acronym L.I.N.K to represent, through the use of a single term, the need to go over the rationalistic, egoistic, dualistic, and reductionist, and moreover, view of reality and change our attitudes using new media innovations to think connecting elements of the ecosystem nature now felt as separated from life and culture, as well as linking several branches of knowledge now seen as disconnected and distant from each other. The link represents the big opportunity given by new media systems such as hypertext systems to produce an ecological network of knowledge, to understand the connections between human well-being and natural well-being, to develop innovative technologies for sustainable living, to spread the systemic and ecological worldview, to change our cultural paradigm, and finally, to handle contemporary crises. In short, I argue that in order to realize the cultural shift advocated by Capra and many other contemporary thinkers, we have to highlight that the media by which we produce and share our thoughts are strongly linked with our thinking and worldviews. In light of McLuhan's work, I suggest to focus on the fact that different media offer different ways of organizing knowledge, thus different ways of thinking, and then different ways of understanding the world. In other words, the way in which we understand and organize reality and the kind of linguistic metaphors we use to describe it are dependent on the media we use to communicate and are also deeply related to cultural shift, as you can see from these two quotes from McLuhan's work. In accordance with Derek de Kerkhoff's remarks on brain frames, I claim that in order to use the link faculty to change our cultural paradigm, we need first of all a medium shift. Furthermore, I state that personal computers and the internet have offered us the opportunity to use link to better comprehend human life-nature connections through the fulfillment of a web of knowledge that is more suitable to represent the web of life. To put it another way, I argue that through the use of hypertext systems, it's easier to understand network connection and therefore make new vital connections. That's the name of the speech of my paper. The nonlinear and non-sequential structure of the open, interactive, collective, and cooperative World Wide Web description offered by Ted Nelson shows that hypertext media already offer efficient writing and learning systems based on the network pattern. This supports that electronic hypertext systems are already suitable to help us in changing our cultural paradigm through a cooperative use of the link faculty. You only have to think of how internet makes it easier today to share or dispute information from all around the world and to perceive underlying aspects of our daily life, such as ecosystem relationships of natural elements and environmental impacts of products we commonly encounter. To sum up, I argue that focusing on developing or strengthening the faculty through the use of the hypertext gives us the opportunity to fulfill sustainable societies in which people use nonlinear intuition to put their own needs and desire in even a more large and complex whole. Having looked at the main claim of my today's talk, I would like now to consider how the social movements adopting systemic and ecological approaches could use the World Wide Web to share their views and promote their attention in a more effective way. So let's turn to how the Norwegian philosopher Arne's apron diagram describes the way ecological social movements act to slowly revolutionize Western cultural paradigm. Arne's was the founder of the deep ecology movement during the 70s and has also coined the term ecosophia, term used for the conference I mentioned before, in which the Kharkov take a talk. In the apron diagram, there are 4 levels to take into account, but as you can see, a strong knowledge platform, level 2, is the theoretical and ethical case to fulfill the systemic and ecological worldview related to the biocentric or ecocentric cultural paradigm. However, and this is the K of my speech, the most of the movements involved in the desirable cultural change still have to recognize completely that cultural and worldview changes require thinking and media changes. Given this argument, In my draft proposal of the web apron diagram, I suggested using hypertext beyond trivial display purposes to create an ecological network of knowledge and participate in an ecological web of learning. I argue that the hypertext platform principles that can be developed through the use of the video, image, text, and audio elements of the World Wide Web system, for which I used the acronym VITA, which in Italian means life, will influence motivations and causes, and therefore accelerate the cultural change process. In other words, I argue that internet waves are particularly suited to encourage ecological social waves. Internet developers and ecological social movements need to realize about such potential, talk about it, discuss it. Their collaboration could be decisive. It's not difficult to imagine how a web platform specifically developed for these purposes could help terrorists writing cooperatively a web principles platform, aided as well by interactions with collaborators, while at the same time help supporters and readers in using L.I.N.K to understand reticular non-sequential connections between several branches of knowledge and between nature's well-being and human well-being. In conclusion, I would like to emphasize that even if on one hand the web platform can be useful to coordinate activists and global campaigns, as well as to help people to make ecological decisions in a daily ethical situation, on the other hand, the last and decisive steps needed to fully develop a biocentric or ecocentric awareness belong to individuals only and are therefore realized in concrete spaces through the making of a personal effort. Platform principles represent an invitation to assume a different cultural perspective, and their hypertexted version represent a further encouragement to transform our way of thinking and worldview. However, it cannot solve all the problems of the world in one move. It's not that easy. I don't want to make it too simple. In short, even without setting apart all the key arguments given in my speech today, the first step is to make a personal effort. That is the hard work we really need to do, and I'm just working on this issue with my research. So thank you for your attention. If you have any comments or questions.
Thank you, Matteo. I think we have a few minutes for questions. Do you have any questions?
Yes, I'm sorry. I know that you are not well prepared in this part, which are the possible application, and it's weird to speak with you in English. But which are the possible application of your model in terms of communication or actions?
Are you talking about the web apron diagram?
Yeah.
I can switch that. Okay. I have to switch to. Thank you. So, it's necessary to explain better how ecological social movements are trying to act to change our way of thinking, to change our worldview. They assume, this is the diagram that tries to explain how they work on it, they assume that starting from a strong platform of knowledge of reality, a renewed knowledge of reality that is no more a cause-effect knowledge of reality, but an interrelated reality. From building this knowledge platform, we have no more to go down in this in this direction of logical derivation. Let me give you a sample. When you smoke, when you buy a cigarette, you don't buy cigarette. Even your boyfriend don't buy cigarette. But if somebody, we talked about it in these days. But if somebody will buy some cigarettes, I think all around the world, it's written in the package that smoke kills. This is the knowledge. If you follow a logical derivation, why buy cigarettes? It's not that easy. So ecological social movements say, from that platform we have to go up, and to go in ultimate premises, finding motivation and causes not in the meanings of life, but in the sense of life, in a larger sense. That could be a multiple variety of origins that can also have some topics shared between religion, philosophy, nihilist, a lot. After going up, you can follow down, repassing through the platform, and choosing political decisions and ethical decisions reconduced to our ultimate premises. If you go. But now, in the old version, the original version of the econ diagram, this strong platform is linear, is book-based. But if you are reading, I was talking about this topic with some friends just a minute before. If you're reading a book of, I don't know, maybe September 11, you know, it was not Osama bin Laden, you know. You can read it, you don't have a reaction. No? You can say it's true, it's not easy to understand what's the reality, what's the truth about these facts. As I listened yesterday in a conference here, I don't know, maybe, I don't remember who was to say that, but they say that now in internet, actions are reactions at the same time. So developing a platform principle, web-based, through the interactions, as you can see, of terrorists like ecologists, biologists, and politics as well, working on a strong platform that could be wiki or blog-based. They can interact also with collaborators, with chat forums, social networks, debating about aspects all around the world, and also help supporters in theoretical coordination and theoretical finding ultimate premises, and then follow down to ethical consequence. So, what I say at the start of my speech, I want to encourage internet developers in building a system like this, especially focused on ecological problems, on environmental problems, to help people to make long-term and long spaces connections. It's not easy in our society. I don't know if I replied to your question. The big problem of our society is that it's not possible to be ethical today. It's simply not possible. We can't be ethical. Because, let me give you a short example.
We can postpone the short example to